Community connection while engaging in physical activity is one of the cornerstones of mental well-being. When we are physically active and continue to challenge ourselves to grow, get stronger, and stay balanced, we bring our best selves to whatever we face, the good, the joyful, the disappointments, the sadness, the true journey we call life. When we and our loved ones face substance use issues, in some circles known as addiction, and I may use that a bit interchangeably in this podcast, we are often left with feelings of shame and are reduced to the stigma heaped upon us. Through this, we are often isolated, either through this stigma or the belief that we are in fact alone with all of the feelings we have internalized, and perhaps that isolation and those feelings are why we use in the first place. Many people who suffer from addiction will tell you that using fills a gap, a void, one that was too painful to share with anyone. Welcome to Small and Gutsy, our podcast featuring nonprofits and social impact organizations under $10 million. My name is Dr. Laura Witkoff, and I'm excited and proud to be your host. We hope you'll love the stories as much as we do, and perhaps you will find needed services, a job, volunteer, invest in, or donate. Please pass along any valuable information you hear today to others, and send me the name of any organization you'd like featured at lwitkoff@gmail.com. That's 2 T's and 2 F's. The Boston Bulldogs Running Club is a true success story in every sense of the sentiment. Coach Mike Ferullo began this journey as an 8th grade dropout, 15-year-old drug user hooked on heroin by age 17, in and out of detox and sometimes jail until at age 22, when he finished 6 months in rehab and 3 months in a halfway house. He knew intrinsically that he needed to define himself outside of his addiction, knowing that substance use issues are only one aspect of his identity. He literally and figuratively put one foot in front of the other and began running, completing the New York City Marathon just 2 years into his sobriety journey in 1974, and has been running ever since. However, now, with the mission of helping others achieve recovery and a better way of life as he has. With a renewed sense of accomplishment, including the identity as an achiever, a marathon runner after all, Coach Mike Ferullo returned to school and not only received his bachelor's, but went on to obtain his master's degree in social work. I am personally very proud to call him a member of my national community of social workers. In 2008, Coach Farullo began volunteering at a male post-detox program, creating a running program with a goal for each participant, regardless of their capabilities, some being smokers, and most never having considered running as an outlet. This idea expanded and grew into launching the co-ed Boston Bulldogs Running Club in 2015, open to any individual, family member, friend, or supporter suffering from the impact of addiction. The current program, with over 4 chapters but 400 members, which you'll soon hear more about, embodies 3 core principles: self-leadership, transparency, and giving back. I am so excited to introduce my guest today, Megan O'Sullivan, Leadership Coordinator, Quincy Chapter Leader, and Boston Bulldogs Leader, and Conan Langoy, Club Leader. Welcome, Megan and Conan. Share your passion about Boston Bulldogs Running Club and how you came to be involved.
Thank you so much. I know we're excited to be here too. Any opportunity to share a little bit about what the club's doing and our mission, we're happy to be here.
Tell my listeners, how did you each get involved? How did it come about for you?
So I've been a member now for a little over 5 years. I, like Coach, struggled with drugs and alcohol for a long time, was an IV drug user by the age of 28, and just really struggled to kind of find a way to maintain sobriety. I had many attempts at getting sober, but I had many failed attempts at staying sober. So during one of those bouts, my father actually caught the story of the Bulldogs on the Channel 5 News. And I remember like it was yesterday, I was sitting in the basement apartment that I was living in at the time in a recliner by myself, just struggling to stay sober and didn't have a huge social circle, didn't have a lot of networking going on. And my dad called and he said, I caught the story. It's a running club for people in recovery. You should check it out. And I was confused because I was not a runner. I too was a smoker at the time. I said, Dad, I have no business being part of a running club. But for whatever reason, he's like, just reach out, and I didn't have anything else going on in my life at the time. So I figured for whatever reason, I picked up the phone and I called. And on the other end was Coach Mike. And I can remember being prepared with all these questions he may ask me about my running resume and why I wanted to get involved and all that stuff. And, I was a nervous wreck and full of fear. And for whatever reason, he kind of eased all that immediately in the phone call and just told me, how did you hear about it? And I told him I caught the story, and he said, that's awesome. Why don't you go ahead and just show up? And that simple direction, that just show up, for whatever reason, I felt like I could do. I joined the club on the following Saturday morning in the middle of February. And when I showed up at the Chestnut Hill Reservoir, there was a circle of people gathered around Coach, and he was in the middle talking to them about things that I understood but had never heard in that sense before. He was talking about things like, tapping into our true potential and really finding the kind-hearted warrior inside every one of us. And those were things that I had never thought about for myself before. I had never really thought about what my true potential was. And I had never really thought about even ever having this kind-hearted warrior. And for whatever reason, I was interested, and caught my attention that morning. I wasn't sold on the running thing because, like I said, I wasn't a runner yet. So I kind of stayed in the back of the pack that morning, and I put my headphones in quickly so that I wouldn't have to talk with anybody, because I could hardly run, never mind conversate and run at the same time. And I stayed shoulder to shoulder with this gentleman that morning. And I can remember thinking to myself, like, thank God that he's just as out of shape as I am. Otherwise, I'd be left in the dust by myself. And he stayed with me the whole time. And he didn't ask me many questions. He noticed that my headphones were there. And, I come to find out after joining them a few more times, he was not out of shape. He was actually an extremely seasoned runner, wasn't there for himself that day. He was there for people like myself who were new and just wanted to do something different with their life. I had no idea, because I was shown no judgment. I truly just felt comfortable with him, and, realized pretty quickly that I was part of something much bigger than just a running club.
Such a compelling story in so many ways, from the early moment of the anxiety maybe of, can I fit into this when I'm not a runner, when it's really so much bigger than that. The feeling that I get as you're describing the story is being held. So you got to go there, and there was no judgment, and somebody was side by side with you and just allowed you to be who you are in that moment.
You definitely are a social worker and friend coach, because he tells us that's what they're creating is a holding environment.
The way you describe it, it is so compelling. It's like, gosh, I want to find something like that in LA.
Being able to look back after staying with the group for a while and realize what was done for me and how impactful and how helpful that was for me, it was so inspiring and motivating to stay and continue to grow on the path of wellness, so that I could be that somebody for somebody else coming in.
When you create that for each individual who's part of the running club, it becomes something bigger than a running club.
Everybody there was so welcoming and so inviting that I wanted to go back just to be around that, because it had been a while since I had been in kind of that positive atmosphere. But additionally, Coach extended a phone call to me midweek just to check in and to see how I liked the experience and how I was doing. And that to me was very different. Like I said, I didn't have any solid relationships, and my family was always there for me. But beyond that, I didn't really have any genuine friendships or solid friendships that were in good shape at that time in my life. I was coming back the next week for sure. And like I said, I've missed very few Saturdays since.
I'm going to hand it off to Conan for a minute and ask you sort of, how did you get involved? How'd you get started? And then we'll talk more about sort of the workings of the program and what makes it really successful, because clearly it is.
I got started with the Bulldogs about a little bit over 18 months ago. I'm in recovery myself. I've been riddled with addiction since I was about 12 years old. I'm 43. And this is my first time in recovery, first time to get sober. And so I ended up in a program in Dorchester, Mass. About a month there, I started to run and get back into shape. I've been an athlete my whole life, so running kind of came easy to me. And a guy in the house was part of the Bulldogs a couple of years back, and he'd see me run. He's like, listen, you should go check these people up on Saturday mornings up at Chestnut Hill. They're called the Boston Bulldogs. They're a recovery-based running club. And I was like, I don't know. And then Friday night, I was actually at this place called Hi-Fi Pizza, and I bumped into another one of our teammates. His name is Tim, and he was actually in the program that I was in prior to me being there. He was already graduated and left, but he's like, listen, you should really just go check it out. Just go tomorrow, here you are. And so I just showed up. My experience is kind of similar to Megan's at the beginning, except I just took off. Like they did that little roundup thing. I was probably riddled with fear if I really think about it. So instead of falling back, I just took off and ran by myself. And then finished, talked to people for a couple minutes, and then just got back on the train and left. And by the time I got off the train, Megan actually called me. Random person calling me from this club I had just only been at for like 20 minutes. I felt like I was like a little weirded out, honestly. Like, I'm like, what's up with these people? Like, what do they want from me? Like, she likes to explain. And normally those conversations last like 10 to 15 minutes with a new member, but like 2 minutes, I was like, all right, yeah, I'll see you next Saturday. And I was like, boom, click off the phone. And then like literally 10 minutes later, coach called me and even asked me about running. Wasn't even about that. He started hitting me with these principles of self-leadership and transparency and giving back and just showing up. And he got right into like his social worker mode with me. And like, literally, like, I don't know what it was, but like, I just felt so comfortable. And like, I didn't get honest with him yet because I still was like nervous. You know what I mean? Like, once again, there's this grown man calling me, like asking me questions about like my life. And like, that just is not normal for me. So I was still scared. I still didn't trust people. I still didn't want to like let people see me. And not just that, I didn't even know who I was. And he's talking about that kind-hearted warrior. And I'm like, well, I'm a warrior. I don't know about kind-hearted. Prior to this, I honestly thought I was a sociopath my whole life, but come to find out I'm not, which is good news. Unfortunately, COVID hit. So like a month into me joining the Bulldogs, we had to shut down for a little while. But I stayed connected through Zoom, meeting up with Megan and some other people on the side and running. But like the one thing that stayed with me was like, after that Saturday, coach was like, I'm going to call you on Tuesday. He called. And then he's like, I'm going to call you next Tuesday. And then he called. And then he hasn't missed a Tuesday since. And like she said, it just like, I don't know, it just feels like so comfortable once I started to let my guard down and like let people in through all this work of him working on me and just showing up and finding some value and self-worth in my life. I've really realized that like I am a good person. My past doesn't have to define my future. Just the community of people that like rally around each other. Somebody running in Maine or New Hampshire, or if somebody's down in Florida, they got this app where they're like egging the person on down there through apps. It's like, it's just so amazing. And like people that aren't even in addiction are willing to come out and like help me. It's like such a blessing. And I'm just like so grateful for all that.
Yeah, I want to get to that part of the program in a minute because I love that it's opened up and broadened to family members, supporters, people who care or interested. You said so many amazing things. The last piece of what you said is that your past doesn't define your future. And to understand your own self-worth is a beautiful journey that you're now on board with. And it really, I think, articulates when people give you messages and you live in a bubble of defense because you have to defend against being let down and disappointed and hurt and all of the other stuff, slowly letting that guard down, as you said, but there's a reason you had built up that wall. And now the reason for that wall has come down because you're now engaged in and participating in a hugely supportive environment. And my guess is, and Megan might attest to this or not, is that you are truly supportive of others, even though you're fairly new to the program.
That's accurate, for sure.
That's what I figured. I also want to capitalize on one other thing that you both said, which is when the consistency of someone saying they're going to show up when they show up or call when they're going to call surprised you both because that wasn't your experience in your life. And when that happens, you start to trust and invest in what somebody's offering to do. Not even comparable, but when I started this podcast like 6 months ago, honestly, it's new. I had a couple people say, okay, what's the catch? What are you going to charge us? What are you going to do? I'm like, no. This is something I want to do because I believe in these smaller organizations. And I think the fact that I showed up, did what I said I would do, they're now really interested in giving me other, organizations and growing this. And so I think showing up is the first step. I want to hear about the program itself. I love that it's expanded beyond what Coach Mike had originally designed it. Is really around recovery, but it's expanded to include family members, loved ones, supporters.
I think originally, it was designed for people in recovery, but he always included friends and family that were impacted by addiction. Like my sister runs with us, or people that support the idea of wellness and recovery. So we have a lot of people that work in the field, or people who don't, but just love the idea of what we're doing and they want to be part of the community to support. It's been an amazing combination, I think, especially for people like us that are the members who are in recovery, to see other people in the community who don't have to be there. In a sense, like we need to be there because our life is not good when we're not doing things for ourselves. But in a sense, they don't need to be there, but they still want to come and like run with us and hang out with us and be a part of it and be supportive. Like, I'm not like that bad person that nobody wants to be around. Like, there are actually good people that support what we're doing, that, you know, see the good in what we're trying to do and want to rally around that mission and that purpose. So, you know, as we continued to grow and we saw the members get involved, and Coach is very, very much a visionary, and he's very impromptu at the same time. So he would just start doing things and giving people goals and helping them achieve them, kind of thing that sprung the idea around, like, we need to kind of structure this a little bit more. And how can we truly give our members full in their wellness goals? That came to call our Full Circle program, which is a 3-phase program, starting with Full Circle 1. Our Full Circle 1 program is a 5K, where with that, they get individual wellness sponsorship, they get a training plan, and then they get the support of the club. So we meet the people where they're at, design a training plan for them to follow, give them the support of a one-on-one sponsor, and then train with them over that 6-week period, where we have dedicated Full Circle race days. You know, the whole club gets together and we get to kind of celebrate their achievements, where we run the 5K and then have a recognition ceremony afterwards to kind of talk about what they've practiced during those 6 to 8 weeks outside of just the running, which is where the principles come in. Coach has designed these 3 principles that are truly transformative when it comes to what we're doing outside of just the physical component, but being able to understand and practice what it means to have self-leadership. Like you said, we're responsible for the effort we put in, and what is that going to look like? And then the transparency component is like really being able to see the truth about us, to see the truth about our thoughts, to get honest with people, and to work with that stuff that has always made life difficult for us. You know, the things that told us, no, you can't, or that's too hard, or, you know, you have no business being there, and those types of things. And then, you know, there's the giving back component. Just by showing up, people are giving back whether they know it or not.
One of the things that I want to suggest is that I know that you had shared that it's amazing that other people show up who don't have to be there because it isn't part of their recovery lifestyle, because they're not in recovery. And yet I want to suggest that they do have to show up, because I think recovery is part of all of our journeys in one way or another. It's different, and I absolutely am amazed and admire people who are truly in recovery, because I think it's a battle every single day. And yet I think that people who show up because they want to be there, they're invested in, and they get that because they have their own battles, whatever they are. I love that it's opened up in that way, and that it also, I think, acknowledges to the folks who are in recovery, none of us are a step away of not having wellness, however that's defined. And so I love that frame. I think it's amazing, and I think it's beautiful. I also want to comment on the celebratory piece of setting a goal, working toward it, having experts who are there by your side and achieving that. And I can only imagine, you probably have a couple stories of what that feels like, either for yourselves or for someone where you got to witness that at the end of that first circle, I think you call it, right?
We just had our Full Circle recognition ceremony this past Monday in Quincy. And I mean, it's always such an emotional night that without fail, after everyone that we have, my phone is going off the next morning with how wonderful last night was. And, you know, it's so nice for people, you know, that are coming in to see that happen, for the people that have been a part of it to watch it unfold and then have a place to celebrate all of that. And it's just amazing. I mean, it really is. It's like the emotion and the love and everything that's kind of felt that night is definitely, it's just a well beyond, you know, the running goals for sure. Because in the program, what ends up happening for people, including myself, was showing myself that I could do these things helped kind of my self-esteem to wake up a little bit. My confidence came back a little bit. And, you know, the more I practiced that and the more I showed myself, yes, you can, and you can do this, you know, that naturally just started to bleed out into other areas of my life. But I wouldn't have done that on my own. If I didn't have people in structure and in a place to do that with camaraderie and community, I would have never done that on my own. There is power in numbers. And
there's total power. And I would even expand that even outside of recovery in general. We all need that. because once you have that confidence and self-esteem, you don't have to be defensive.
Yeah.
So that's the circle 1. And then you can get beyond that. What are the other levels?
So full circle 2 is a 10K. So the rest of the program is designed the same way, where you get, the wellness sponsorship and the training and all of that, but you're working towards a 10K goal versus a 5K goal. That's always exciting for a couple of things, a couple of reasons. One, because, sometimes people are running their first 10K that they've ever run, but also because when people do complete their full circle 2, that opens up an opportunity for them to then apply for our leadership program. And that's where kind of the trueness of the giving back comes in, where they become the wellness sponsor and they become the support for newer members. So they've seen now over the last 16 to 20 weeks doing full circle 1 and 2, how much that's been helpful for them. And, 9.5 times out of 10, people want to do that for somebody else. So after the completion of full circle 2, they have the opportunity to apply for this leadership program.
And the leadership program then leads into being a leader of one of the clubs.
Not one of the chapters, but more so any of our leaders that are in the leadership program can support any of the runners in any of the chapters.
Got it.
Yeah, so there's probably a group of, I think we have 10 leaders right now. We try to keep them, in our chapters, but most of us float anyway. So it's kind of up to us to take the initiative to get to know other members in other chapters and, to go down and support. Like Conan has a guy that he's sponsoring in our Plymouth chapter. So they'll go down there and run with him. And Ashley will come up from Plymouth to Chestnut Hill to sponsor a girl that she's supporting.
And so I'm guessing, Conan, that for you completed that full circle 2 and it became a leader. And so that's where, and even with COVID, you were able to do that over the last year and a half or so.
Yeah, it looked a little different for me because of the COVID, but actually I was still able to complete the full circle 1 and full circle 2. And yeah, and it was definitely a challenge, not so much the physical end of it, but like the main thing for me, like I said earlier, that was life-changing was being able to work on these principles and find out, like, being able, during COVID, there was nothing going on. So I would just come back to my apartment at the time and have a lot of time to myself. And for a long time, I wasn't like that comfortable yet with relaxing. I didn't know what that was like. I never sat down ever. I mean, Megan will tell you at ping pong, I'm crazy. So I'm like a water bug. I can't sit still sometimes. So being home by myself and sitting with myself and not ever really doing that without drugs or alcohol, right? So coach calling me every Tuesday got me working on these principles and transparency being like the biggest one for me. Was to understand that, like Megan was saying earlier, that those are just thoughts sometimes. And it doesn't make it easy because sometimes my thoughts can race off and I start to believe that that's reality. And coach is always saying, kid, you're just seeing a snake when it's just a rope. Slowly but surely, like it does, you start to believe that, okay, these are just thoughts and they do go away. Right. And then he started to work on me deeper in these Buddhist principles that he has instilled in himself. He started to try and work me through these things, understanding that, like, the more you practice, like just feeling the thought and then not owning it, not letting it define your day. Like, it's okay to be sad. Just feel the sadness. And like, it doesn't mean that I have to walk around with a pout on my face every day, right? Like I can be sad and that's okay. And like slowly but surely, all these thoughts would come and I would just learn how to work through them and then understand that that's all they are. They're just thoughts and they are just going to go away just like everything else. I remember the first time I actually, like for a weekend, didn't do anything. Like didn't go running. Just sat home and like didn't even watch TV, I don't think that much, and like was able to like just sit with myself for 2 days. And like that was crazy. For me, that was like such a goal and like such a blessing, and I really owe it all to this club and to Coach and Megan.
It's like you walked through a threshold, right, of where you were and where you are. And it's remarkable because to be able to do that and feel okay and recognize the feelings. And I love the metaphor of it's not a snake, it's a rope. And I was just reading something recently, probably posted on social media, but I love Brene Brown, of course, a fellow social worker, right? And it was about how we constantly ask everybody for their opinion, right? And I think sometimes it's warranted. You want to get feedback from people you respect. I get that. I think it's great. But she really pointed out what it's like if we just sit with the dilemma. Like just sit with it. Don't try to answer it or ask questions around it, because sitting with it often reveals the next step. And that's exactly what you experienced and you shared with us right now. What's next for the Boston Bulldogs Running Club? Where would you like to see it grow? What's next?
According to Coach, we're going to be in the UK soon, so bringing it international, I think, is on the list. But no, I mean, definitely growth for sure. I know we do get interest often in other pockets of Massachusetts and beyond, interested because there's nothing like this in those communities, and we truly believe and want to let it grow into many other places and spaces throughout the U.S. And beyond. Maybe it is kind of not just something that we want to hand out. I mean, there's been so much love and tears and sweat and everything poured into making sure that this was working to help people, that we're afraid if people don't be a part of it first and really understand what we're doing, that it could change. And, so we're really kind of just mindful of how quickly the growth is happening. But we certainly do want to grow that. And, and we also have our giving back program that we're looking to expand as well. We do volunteer work at the Italian Home for Wanderers, and then also at a couple of the local shelters, one being the Engagement Center in Boston, and then also Father Bill's in both Brockton and Quincy, where we'll bring down, whether depending on the season, hooded sweatshirts and socks, or if it's summertime, t-shirts, and bring down what we can as far as their needs. And our community really rallies as far as donating for us to be able to build enough things to bring down there. And then, with the kids, it's always important to go down and, have pizza parties and bring them stuff that we can, and do what we can to give back in those spaces too. So we definitely want to, build on both just chapter volume and then also our giving back program as well.
I love that you have this community engagement piece of giving back, because it really does signify there is something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's exactly it. Like when people read our shirts and they see what we're doing on a Saturday, we're running. So to them, the Boston Bulldogs Running Club is a running club, and rightfully so that they think that. But until they really kind of get to know the community and learn about the Full Circle program and the leadership program and the giving back and all the other stuff that we do and believe in and are built on outside of the physical component, to the strange eye, it's just a running club. But we're not just a running club. We're overall wellness in so many different ways. So yeah, it's important to us that people kind of really get to know that.
In terms of when folks become engaged and involved, and you see somebody grow from the first time, as you two have, to where you are now, do people stay engaged? Do they often then go off and do other things?
I think that we see a blend of both. We do see some people will stray, and in my own personal experience, I was one of them in the beginning. I haven't stayed sober since I originally joined this club 5 years ago. I did have one relapse. Hopefully that was the last. That was 3.5 years ago. For the most part, I mean, we have a pretty solid crew that's been around from the beginning.
I love that you shared that. Recovery is an ongoing piece of your life, and that you stepped out and were able to step back in. I assume it was welcoming when you stepped back in.
It truly was. I remember calling Coach from the facility that I was in at the time when I went back into treatment. And I just said, I have 2 questions. I said, are you mad at me? And can I come back? And he was like, Megan, we're waiting for you to come back. And, and I came back, and he, obviously showed me love and, was welcoming back. But at the same time, didn't let me cut corners around, like, you're going to start over just like if you were brand new. So I started the whole Full Circle program all over again, and did it in a different way, that it was me that was different.
I love the 2 questions that you asked, and I love his response, which is, we've been waiting for you. And I also love that he said you're going to start back from scratch, because with each new endeavor, you learn something different. And it sounds like you did.
I think I can speak on behalf of all of our members that the reason why we're so open to learning and continuing to grow is because of the leadership we have with Coach. I mean, been there, done that, like he's just so wise in his years and has so much to share with us, and gets right down on our level and can understand. And so I think that's really inviting for us to be led that way, and it helps us to know that we're being led correctly, and, by somebody who understands.
And I think he creates a safe environment, but with boundaries around it. So I think that's what's so beautiful is that he can recognize that he needs to create safety. Those three prongs are part of what I think keeps him in a healthy environment. And so he wanted to share that. Tell me, where did the name come from?
Oh, Gus, so Coach has a bulldog. Gus actually just passed away a couple of months ago. So he was very old. I don't know exactly how old, 13, I think.
13, yeah.
You know, he would come to all of our, run for recoveries every year, and he would show up in his baby carriage because he was not a great running mascot. He did no running, but he would still show up. He's practicing the first principle. But yeah, no, Coach loved the Bulldogs, and so it's a tie to his dog.
That's great. It was a way to keep him grounded in the things that he loves most, which is great too. I'm sorry to hear that. You'll keep obviously the mascot, and maybe one day he will get another bulldog that will be also in a carriage.
Yeah,
They have short legs. Although leads me to another question, which is everybody has different capabilities. Conan talked about him being a natural runner, and I would have to start out really slowly. And how does that work for somebody who shows up and says, I don't know if I can make it around the reservoir running?
So basically, like I was telling you earlier, it is a running club, obviously, but we don't care if you run a 5-minute mile or a 50-minute mile. If you're here to work on yourself and you want to take an approach, like a holistic approach, kind of like Coach says, on your overall wellness, then we're happy to have you. And if that just means walking, then I'll walk with you. I walk with people all the time on Monday nights. And slowly but surely, people come in and they're like, oh, I'm not a runner. I just spin or I just do this or I just do that. And little by little, next thing you know, they're walking for 3 minutes and they're running for a minute. And then next they're running for 2 minutes and all different shapes and sizes. We love everybody and we just want to help everybody. And that's what keeps us going. And that's what drives me is to watch someone come in with no ability to run, no want to run, and then to watch them complete the full circle and give their speech at the end in tears and thank me and thank Megan and thank everybody around them for the support and everything. And that's what keeps me coming back is that.
We all need a purpose. And it sounds like you both have found yours within this context of helping others, which is really quite beautiful. This episode is sponsored by the Intrinsic Group, my boutique management consulting firm specializing in guiding organizations to leverage talent, optimize processes, and to ensure the organization's narrative is aligned with their culture. If you'd like to sponsor an episode, please reach out to us. To see all the small but mighty organizations we featured, check out our incredible infographics in the stories section of the Intrinsic Group website. As you may or may not know, toward the end of my podcast, I always have a round of quick, gutsy questions that are fun and not scary. You guys are runners. You can handle this. More than that, you're actually not runners. You're Boston Bulldog runners. That's a different thing. Okay. So I need to make that really clear so that it's not a running club. It's really something much more than that. And you've totally shared that with me and given me insight into what does wellness really mean? What does well-being really mean? And beyond that, what does self-leadership mean? I'm hoping listeners investigate what you're offering and connect with you because it's really special. And I'd like to dedicate this podcast to future Boston Bulldog members. How about that? Because you're growing.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, no, we would love to see some new faces. Absolutely. But Thank you for that. That was really kind of you to say.
So here are the quick and gutsies. What is at the top of your wish list for Boston Bulldogs Running Club? But the answer can't be money or funding.
Honestly, and maybe this might not be the answer that you're looking for, but we've recently lost 2 members. So at the top of my wish list would be to lose not a single more member.
I love that. And it's not, I don't look for any answer. This is all coming from you. So your answer is your answer and it's beautiful. And I'm sorry you lost them. And it's a great goal to have.
Top of my wish list would be at the end of the day, 20 years from now, we're still running wild. That would do nothing but bring so much joy to Coach, when he's 85 or 90, still showing up to the res and we're still running.
If you were to think of a song that describes the Boston Bulldogs Running Club, what would it be?
For me, that's easy. Van Halen, Running with the Devil.
Perfect. Love it. Megan, what about you?
I don't know if I'm going to top that. I don't know. That's a good question. And I'm terrible with like music and titled names. If I heard a song, I could probably sing it, but that's, you don't want to hear me sing, but.
Or you could even do a lyric if you don't have a song, because I'm like you. I don't always remember the names, but I might remember a lyric. So we're open.
We have so much fun. And that's like a big part of what we try to promote is just don't take it too seriously. Like, don't stress out. These programs are not designed to be stressful. Come down and have a lot of fun. So girls just want to have fun is coming to mind.
Yes, absolutely. Perfect songs, I think. So tell me, what makes the Boston Bulldogs Running Club gutsy? Because you are gutsy.
I mean, people have to be willing to change. That takes courage.
Yes.
It takes bravery, and it's not easy to do. And so I think just being willing to change is definitely because to step into that, I mean, people, if they want to come in and just stay exactly the same, they're welcome to do that. And this is people just even beyond those who are in recovery.
Right.
Because even the impacted ones, they end up changing and are practicing principles, and they're growing as well as individuals and as runners. But I think to come into this circle, you have to have some courage and courage to change.
I guess I just have to echo on that. I don't know what else to say. I mean, as far as that, change is not easy. It's scary. And especially when, you come in broken and beat up for a lot of us. And even people that aren't in recovery. I mean, it can't be easy. They have a thought process of what they think an addict looks like or what an addict is. And then they come in there and that outlook changes for them as well, because then they get to see us and they realize that we're humans, we're their brothers, their sisters, their kids, their cousins, and like, as opposed to like seeing us as that person on the side of the street, So like, I think change is like the biggest thing that we have is for guts wise is the willingness to change on every aspect of everybody in the club.
And what is something that outsiders or insiders don't know about the Boston Bulldogs Running Club?
We started dating in the club.
Oh, now that's public. I hope everybody knows.
But there's probably plenty that don't.
Yeah.
Okay, don't laugh, okay? But I was sitting here going, do I ask them? I can't do that on this podcast, but there's such a chemistry between the two of them. Do I really say something or not say something? Congratulations. My last quick and gutsy for each of you is if you could get one celebrity or influencer to endorse or talk about the Boston Bulldogs Running Club, who might it be?
Ben Affleck came to mind because he's from Boston. He's in recovery himself, well-known, down to earth.
For me personally, so I just started listening to his podcast about 2 months ago, and then come to find out, like, Coach loves the guy as well. Jay Shetty, he's a Buddhist, as I'm sure you know. He's gone to monasteries, he's a monk, and he does the podcast himself. And I think he would actually be like very interested and intrigued in our club, knowing the principles and our core values and how we are looking inward. And then as we look inward and we find love and self-compassion and self-empathy, then we're able to put that out in the world.
I love both of those. And I'm going to add Brene Brown, and we'll hashtag all of them and see what happens. Who knows?
Yeah, she was in recovery as well, Brene Brown.
Yeah, she is actually. Yeah, and she talks about that quite a bit. The program that you offer, again, as we started this podcast, is so much bigger than it's not a running club. And it's not just a recovery program. It's really a way of life. Yeah, that's how it feels as you're talking about it.
It's a great way to put it, yeah.
How can folks reach out to you? What's the best way to find you?
We have a website. It's bostonbulldogsrunning.com. There is an email address on there. We have a Facebook page, Boston Bulldogs Running Club. We have an Instagram account. They're welcome to direct message any of those platforms, and either myself or whoever's monitoring them at the time will certainly get back in a reasonable turnaround time. My number and coach's number is also on the website as well. So if the phone call is more preferable, they can do that. But there is an email. It's bulldogsrunning@yahoo.com or the Facebook or Instagram.
So I just want to take a moment and really thank you for spending time with me today and sharing both your own personal stories and struggles and your successes and the beauty of really this movement that you've created that is about well-being, where recovery is a component of it, but it really is a movement toward wellness, which is a continuous journey. So thank you both.
Sure.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
No, thank you so much for your time, and and thank you for your interest in wanting to hang out and chat with us. And we're certainly look forward to the podcast.
Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, please share it with your friends, give us some stars, and write a review on wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're interested in sponsoring a small and gutsy episode to keep it going, please reach out to me or buy us a coffee at www.buymeacoffee.com/small-and-gutsy. Of course, we can't take responsibility outside of our own vetting of the organizations we interview, meaning we encourage you to do your own due diligence and research them as well. I want to thank my partners in this endeavor, the Intrinsic Group, the volunteers, my co-producer, sound engineer, and composer, the amazing Pavel Franson, my social media maven, Delania Tirado, my infographic creator extraordinaire, Sonia Fizek, Nate Addy for the exceptional logo, and all the friends and family who have guided and inspired me. From small and gutsy to big with impact, I'm Laura Witkoff, and thanks for listening.